How's everybody doing? My big beef with college football, and the way I could see it was staged, was I had called it on my Facebook. As soon as the first rankings came out, I said it'll be those four teams. That's who will be. I said you'll never see it change, and sure enough, it never changed. Texas A&M, of course, was the team that got robbed, and how do you really know they got robbed? Their loss was to the best team in the nation early. Notre Dame's loss was to a really fine football team, arguably, arguably the second best team in all of college football, the Clemson Tigers. But they lost late, and they lost extremely late. So the eye test from the beginning of the season, we all know in this COVID year we had no spring, you were allowed to improve throughout the year because you didn't have a spring. They won 7 straight SEC games. A&M did in the toughest conference, in the toughest half of the toughest conference in all of college football. Amazing offensive and defensive lines, which is what Notre Dame is also noted for. Good but not great quarterbacks, Notre Dame and A&M. But Notre Dame lost late, and they lost badly. 34-10. No, it was 34-3. There was a garbage touchdown at the end that meant nothing. And you put them in the playoff because they wanted to do it in your face. They knew they could. And guess what? All my college football friends are saying, oh, well, Notre Dame, it's more television. That's why they did. They don't see it. They don't understand it. And Notre Dame gave you the 4 horses of the apocalypse. The Buckeye, Ohio State, the buck, the Antichrist is the stag. He is the buck with the horns. The horns fall off the buck and the stag for regeneration. That's what the Antichrist will do. He will go through a regeneration process, and he will rise from the dead. Well, not rise. He rises from the pit. Yeah, he rises from the dead spiritually because he never does die. But because it's two to make one. It's the twin or the clone that'll be assassinated. It is the real one that will spiritually go into the what they call the bottomless pit, the abyss, and he will rise spiritually, which is where the North Pole is, which will melt, which is what the global warming will be about at the end times, which is what they've been preparing everybody for. The waters will rise because the North Pole will be melted, and the spirit not only of Antichrist, but the fallen ones will be released into the world in a way that hasn't been like since the days of Noah, but will not truly manifest fully like they're going to until the Antichrist is seen rising seemingly from the dead. And like the Bible says, so like it was in the days of Noah, so shall it be when the Son of Man returns. And in the days of Noah was when the fallen ones were on the earth, creating mighty men, men of renown, straight out of Genesis 6, 1-9. That's what the flood was needed for. It clearly states there were giants in those days. And that's why you have teams like the New York Giants. And of course, the Jets hit the Twin Towers. That's why you got the New York Jets. All the world's a stage. Everything's been planned out by the Ghost in the Machine many, many years ago, decades upon decades ago. And I'm going to condense this down for you. Oh, that's Ohio State, the buck eye. The Antichrist gets shot in the right eye. That's Zechariah 11:17, the idle shepherd. His right eye and his arm. Talks about his right eye. I believe it says it shall be utterly darkened or something to that effect. Then you've got Clemson. They wear the orange and the purple. Orange comes at 33. And that's, of course, Trump's favorite color because it comes at 33. And I believe it's Pythagorean gematria. And the color purple, of course, think about the movie The Color Purple or the song Purple Haze. It's all about the red blending with the blue, which is what all these France flags, British flag, American flag, many other flags that are red and blue. They have red and blue in them. Australia, just tons of them. That makes purple. Red and blue make purple. Purple Haze, the color purple. Purple Rain, the rock band Deep Purple. So that's Clemson, Alabama, of course. The Crimson Blood. We showed you that with Welcome to the Machine. Pink Floyd official music video came out from Pink Floyd's website 2 years ago. So just 2 years ago. This song's been out since the 70s. It was one of my favorite songs. I mean, the Lord has pulled me out of everything. So you get the heads being lopped off, which it clearly states, I believe it's Revelation 24, Revelation 20, verse 4. Those that lost their heads in the Great Tribulation. And so it shows you that. And then, of course, it begins to show the monoliths, which we see popping up all over the earth right now. And here comes the crimson wave, the crimson tide, the red wave of blood, all the blood that is being shed by the saints. Well, it very well could be World War III, which are the three horses of the apocalypse left, because Trump has already received his crown as Corona. The rider on the white horse receives a crown. Crown means Corona. Trump had it October 2nd, which is when the movie Donnie Darko, which stands for Donald Darkness, began. And then when you get war, famine, death. So I believe this also, this more than likely is World War III, because it shows from the blood of World War III, war, famine, death to 1/4 of the earth, which I believe is 2 billion people are going to die, which all could die during this dark winter. And you see what rises up from World War III, the monolith. That monolith, these monoliths are popping up all over the place. So that's what Alabama Crimson Tide, it's the blood. Their big A that they features for Antichrist. Nick Saban, I showed y'all in the previous video, was referred to as the devil himself. So that's what he represents. That's what they represent. Alabama was the first state that glorified the pagan holiday of Christmas, making it a holiday. And their capital is on Goat Hill, and of course the sheep and the goat. So that's Alabama, Clemson, Ohio State, the Buckeye, and Notre Dame, of course, is who gave you the four horses of the apocalypse. Notre Dame, the four horsemen. And what I'll be showing you today is a very quick, a much quicker version. I showed you hand signals of the coaches, and I showed you a whole bunch of stuff in that long one. I had 108 views. It's not bad. I don't know if people watched all of it. But when you look up the four horsemen, I mean, there they are. And that's what they were called, the four horsemen. Also, the Bible has the four horses that people say is of the apocalypse. Well, it's the four horses of the first four seals in Revelation chapter 6. So what we're going to do today is just go through, and I'm just going to show you what I think were the three most obvious plays to give you more of a condensed, quicker version. I went through and showed a lot of stuff, and that one is if you like this one, the shorter version, go back and watch all of the other one. You'll come out of college football. You might watch it for curiosity, but you'll no longer be emotionally transfixed by it. And that's what they've been doing to you. This one here, I believe, was the first one to me that was brutally obvious. So we're going to go over it. There's a number 8 and there's a number 3 stacked in back of him. Okay. And I'm going to mute it. I want to mute my own video and slow motion my own video. I'm not worried about a copyright strike, but I just want to make sure that we get everything on it. And now I've blown it up. See, there's 2 red helmets there. That number 3, you got this gap filled. You got this gap filled. This guy now is responsible for that gap. That's what he's going to do. He would come around and take that. If I'm not mistaken, this guy comes down into the A gap. See, each side of the center are called A gaps. Between the guard and tackle are called B gaps. Outside the tackle is called the C gap. Each must be, you got a guy here in this C gap, you got a guy here in this B gap. He would then have this A gap. He would have this C gap. He's got this B gap. Then he would take, they all know their gap assignments. You must be gap sound. And what you're going to see, if I'm not mistaken, is this tackle, this 3 technique. They call them a 3 technique because your techniques are 0 if you're nose up. If you're a shade to the center, you are a 1 technique. If you are inside the guard, you are 2I. If you're straight up the guard, you're 2. If you're just outside the guard, you are a 3 technique. So that's what they call them. And so he's really lined up kind of in what you would call the a 4I. He is inside. He's got his shoulder, his knee, and he's got his shoulder, his knee. But who's got this A gap? Well, he's going to come down to take that A gap, which means this outside linebacker guy right here has the B gap. He sees where Trask is coming. He sees where the Gator players are blocking the guy to create the hole. See that he's coming into the A gap. He's got the C gap. Well, where's the B gap? He just leaves. He vacates. He vacates, acts dumb, plays dumb, and allows Kyle Trask to look like Superman. They wanted a close game at the end. They wanted a back and forth game. They wanted Florida to just look amazing. They wanted to look like Alabama beat a really strong football team after all. And that was very obvious because he knows everybody's response. He knows what these guys all know what they're doing. That's how they're great. And that's how they're a great defense. They're not stupid. Good grief. Nick Saban's the smartest defensive mind that's ever been in the college game, right? These players aren't stupid. They're the best team in college football. He sees that the Alabama 3 technique is taking the A gap and that the Gator player is blocking him to that A gap. And he sees this guy clearly taking the C gap. He clearly knows that this needs to be his responsibility. He needs to be waiting on Kyle Trask to come right through there. And what does he do? He vacates. He turns his body. He goes, oops, I see where he's coming. And he literally turned his body sideways. Did y'all see that? Watch him. He knows that he's coming through here because he knows that all the other gaps are taken. You see him on this A gap. You see him on this B gap. And you see him on this C gap. Every gap is taken. He knows this is his gap. He will turn his body completely sideways, something you would never see a defender do. Ever would you turn your body sideways. You would keep your pads and your eyes, anything, you would be scraping one way or the other, mirroring the quarterback and then see hole, fill hole. Wherever the hole is, quarterback's going to go through that hole. You fill that hole. I've coached plenty of high school football. I know every bit of this stuff. I've been watching football since the 70s. So you watch him. He knows, watch him, he don't even look at Kyle Trask anymore. He turned to make sure he wasn't going to run into anybody so he can get out of the way. And then he stays back here dancing, going, oops. That was the first one. That's one I'm going to show you because it's painfully obvious. Here he is here again. You got my cursor, my original cursor, and the cursor I'm using now. But watch him. He sees where everybody's going, and he turns to look over here to like he won't run into anybody. Folks, there was no gap for him to take. He knew all the gaps were taken. He knew where the play was going. So number 3 definitely gave it away. That was a terrible sales job right there. But I'm glad we were able to expose them for what they are. This one here was, to me, the easiest to see, because anytime you're at the guy clearly said on TV, there's 10 guys in the box. Nobody was taking away the slant. He knew nobody was taking away the slant. If you are one-on-one to an outside receiver with these kind of skills, the sideline is your friend. You would line up inside of him. You would not let him cross your face and run an easy slant for a touchdown. You would stay in his outside hip pocket, stay in phase with him, run him to the sideline, make him run the fade route, stay in his hip pocket. If he did try and run across the middle of the field, you're between him and the quarterback. He would have to literally do a double move, which is why you always are touching him. You keep your hand on him. You're allowed to keep your hand on him. You're not allowed to push and shove. And they even sometimes allow that. If both are pushing and shoving, nobody will get a flag unless you get the last shove and you're the defender and it causes him not to catch it. Then you'll get the flag. So you would line up inside and you would push him to the outside, make him run the fade, because there's no way he can run a slant because you would be in between him and the ball. So not only does he not take away the slant, he allows this guy to do this. He knew what he was going to do. He allowed him to fake him out with some dance move to the outside, which made him bounce to the outside, which he was already lined up, nose up him, and gave him what? Gave him the easiest slant in the history of mankind. Folks, I could have covered that. I'm 59 and a half years old. I could have, I'm a PE coach, trust me. I could have covered that guy. I work out once or twice a week, trust me. I could have covered that receiver better than Wilson, who of course walked out with the number 11. Well, they walked out together in phase, representing the 33. The 11 and the 3 walked out to open the game. And I think I show you all that towards the end. Yeah. They walk out together, giving you the election day, giving you 11 times 3 is the 33. And of course, in Canada, that means the 11th day of the third month, which of course is also when what? When Trump announced the that America was under their, the global pan. Here's another one right here, another view. So you would line up here. You would line up on the inside. You're saying, because you're not getting any help from this guy, and you're not. He never went to take away the slant. He never dropped into coverage. They're all robots. They're all doing what they're told. They all know this guy's going to get the ball. Probably rehearsed in practice. That's why coaches, that's why the press is no longer allowed at practice, folks. This is what's going on. And you would line up on the inside when you have no help. Ready, set, go. You don't even look at the quarterback. You watch him the entire time. You just watch his eyes, but you don't let him slant. You make him take off that way. Then if he came across, you're in between the ball and him. But you're touching him, so if he does a double move, you know to move with him. And you're usually going back and forth with your eyes if you're in that situation. It's very hard to do. But they clearly stated, hey, well, there's 10 in the box, blah, 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 and all that on TV. So he had single coverage. Now you can see he is lined up to his inside foot, but he is no more trying to take away the slant than the man in the moon. Look at him. He is already on his outside shoulder. But just to pretend, he makes a move that way to make him really bail, meaning what? Oh, just one simple move. And there's so much green grass out here. I would have lined up inside of him. As soon as he would have taken off, I would have chucked him toward the sideline, and then I would have stayed in phase with him in his hip pocket, touching him with my right hand. And when he turned to look for the ball, look at that. That's touchdown already. But just to make sure, he really keeps his feet in the ground and makes sure the guy just beats him to death. These guys are never helping out. Never, 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 ever. They're not helping out. Not one iota. Look at that. You want to talk about beaten badly, on purpose, all by design. If you can't see that, you don't know the game, or you're spiritually handed over to the deception, just like you probably voted in the election because that's not real, or just like you believe in fake science and evolution and Big Bang and all the other crap. I think you can look up and see the Big Dipper and Little Dipper every single night. How does that happen when you're spinning and revolving around the sun? 366 or 65 days a year, you look up and it's the same stars. And if you go to the North Pole, Polaris doesn't move. The rest of them just turn like a clock. And you know what their answer is? Well, you don't understand. Those stars are so far away that they've burned an imprint in the sky. That's their excuse. So this one here wasn't as obvious. So I'm going to skip this one. They were obvious to me, but they weren't obvious to anybody else. The last one I really want to show you. Was Pitts being covered by nobody when Florida rushed 3. Let me repeat. He was covered by nobody. They the great Alabama Crimson Tide dropped 8. They knew that Kyle Pitts was the most amazing. Oh, this is the 56 getting beat. I'm not going to bother with that one. Y'all won't, that won't be as obvious to many. This one here was super obvious. So I'll go back and show you this one. So there were 4 that were super obvious. I think what I want to do is speed it up a little bit. I want to get me going a little faster. So we can get this party started. See this guy here? He goes like he's jumping and the other guy just falls down like championship wrestling. That was the easiest thing in the world to see. The easiest thing in the world was to see that number 5 absolutely did not care 1 iota. He knew the guy was going to jump. The guy telegraphed that he was going to jump, and all he did was lay down on purpose. All right, here it goes. So he's running, and he's going to dip to let you know he's jumping, and he folks, and he did that. That was painfully easy to see. This was the other one I was telling you about. There's nobody here to cover number 84 when they drop 8 people. The deep safety was guarding nobody. That one wasn't that obvious. Where's the Kyle Pitts? That one wasn't as obvious either. People won't pick up on that one. I've got to show the Kyle. Let me pause for a second. Oh, this was another one that was painfully obvious. Let's go ahead and go to this one. I'll do the Pitts one later. So this one here, you're going to watch another DB. That's why all these defenses have played terrible this year, because it's the defenses that will play terrible, and they blamed it on the not having spring. They were like, oh, these guys, they don't know how to play football anymore. Patrick Surtain knows how to play football. Watch him. He took away the slant. Did y'all notice that? If I'm not mistaken, he did what I said you got to do. So let's go to, yeah, I already passed the, we'll go back to the Pitts one. See how he took away the slant? So when you look at that, And we'll pause it. I'm going to go a little slower than usual here. I really want to be able to slow-mo this down. Do you see how he's lined up inside of him? Now, I don't think he was worried about the slant, but he definitely wants to run this guy to the sideline. And when you do run him to the sideline doubles as a defender. If they catch it out of bounds, it's no good. If they catch it and run out of bounds, they're out of bounds. So notice how he's going to go ahead and run this basically a 9 route. He's going to run the go route, and he's going to run it to the outside. So Surtain does his job. He's going to move him. This is what number 3 should have done, except number 3 should have lined up way more inside of him. Now he does a double move, but notice how he doesn't bite on it. Probably because he already knows what the route's going to be, because they've already had this rehearsed. The different players Alabama would have played him in practice. He would have, Gator players would have played him in practice. But what I definitely showed y'all, and you can't see it because I'm doing a film of a film. So now it's a little more blurred, but his eyes, when you go to the previous video that I did on this, you can see his eyes clearly, and he is looking right up at that football. Right there. There it is. It still showed up. Look at his eyes. Do you see his eyes? You see the whites there because the eyeballs are looking right at the ball. He will not jump for this ball. He will not even bring his arms up. And then while the receiver goes up, he turnstiles around him and allows him to release downfield for a touchdown. This is one of the best corners, probably one of the top 3 corners, 4 corners taken in the draft. He has length. He has ability. His dad played in the NFL, so they already know that he's a made man. He was a made man when he came there. Why do you think all the Alabama players don't go pro? Because they still got a job to do. They got to keep Alabama great. The running back and the receiver this year, all. Is he jumping now? He's looking at the ball the whole time. Why is he going to catch it and I believe go up for it, and he doesn't even jump? He doesn't even lift his arms to the football. Look at that. He just goes, whoa, how'd you do that? Now he's gonna turnstile right around him. If you can't tell that, then you don't know football. Not even in the least. You don't even watch it on TV. You just think that's normal. You think that's normal. There ain't nothing normal about it. And these players are told to show emotion. It's easy to do. I could do it all day too. So this was the last one. Of course, I showed the hand signals nonstop in the other video. It was, a hand signal affair after another. The only other one that was obvious that I wanted to show you was the Kyle Pitts. And this is it. Let's just play it. God, I can't see. I'm getting one confused from the other. Can't tell which one is real. Okay, I got on super slow motion, so hopefully we don't miss this. What he's going to do, they're rushing 3. They dropped 8. He's going to run all the way downfield, turn, And see the safety here? Not only is he bailing way out of the way, but nobody, they're all supposed to be watching number 84. The rule of thumb is don't let 84 beat you. Don't let 84, and there he is, right over the middle. This guy was completely out of the picture. This guy was nowhere in sight. The other guys were nowhere in sight. This guy was literally way back there. They just allowed him to go down and catch that football. So they're going to show it again. You see him right there being released. He's going to go with him. That guy right there, he should be all over him. There's nobody else to cover. He should be in phase with him as he goes across. The deep safety should be coming down to knock his block off. That guy should be in phase with him the whole way. This guy should be gaining depth because there's nobody else in his zone. You take whoever comes into your zone in zone coverage. 3 guys should have been around him. And when in fact, none were. The other guy was 15 to 18 yards away from him, covering nobody. I joked and said covering the referee. Then I said he was covering the circle in the middle of the field, the logo. By the time he catches the ball, he's still 7 yards away from the catch. He had nothing else to do but watch him come downfield the whole time. That was painfully obvious if you know anything about football. That was the plan. Rush 3, drop 8, give Kyle Pitts that gigantic zone coverage. Fine receiver, fine athletes, but this stuff is scripted, just like the NFL is scripted. Tom Brady did not win 6 Super Bowls at 57 years old. It's fake. Belichick and Saban are the 2 brotherhood leaders in both leagues, college and pro. And that's a long story. We're just going to let it die there, folks. I love you. I hope this shorter version made it way more easier to see.